Before we get going into the video, my name is Brando. For the new viewers, I'm the founder of Brandlux Media. We are an e-commerce growth agency. We've been able and so fortunate to work with 100 plus partners. And so the reason I started this channel is to document every framework that I know is proven to work and that actually work so that you can get some value from it and, hopefully make your business a success. With no further ado, I hope you enjoy this video. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to this video. It's going to be an interesting topic. I've never done a video like this where I speak about this specific topic, but in today's video I'm going to bring you through the exact mindset when it comes to numbers and how 8-figure businesses actually scale. There's always a difference between, and I've noticed this throughout the last 6 to 7 years as I've been doing this, is there's always a different mindset on how a 6-figure business grows compared to a multi-7 or a multi-8-figure business, right? It's completely different. The type of approach is very different. So in this video, I'm going to show through graphical representations and kind of like metaphors and graphs. I'm going to show you how they're doing it, how they are approaching their marketing when it comes to advertising spend, ROAS, MER, all these numbers, so that we can dive deeper and you can use perhaps the same infrastructure and template for your own e-commerce business. Okay, with no further ado, let's get right into the video. There's a lot to speak about. Great. So this is a very at heart topic to me, if I have to be honest. I always have, especially when I onboard, the times that we do sometimes onboard 6-figure brand owners that are maybe making 50, 60, 70K a month, whatever. There's always this kind of like initial battle of how we feel the business should grow and how they feel the business should grow. So, and it's typically the difference of a 6 and a 7 and a 7 and an 8-figure business, okay, that as I explained in my intro. So I'm going to talk about certain aspects. As you can see over here, I have a lot of new graphs that I kind of took the time to create just to show you a visual representation. Why is this not working? Why is this not working? There's no zoom option. 1 second. There we go. So hopefully you're still with me. So so I'm going to bring you through the exact proportion and importance of looking at ROAS and MER, and then I'm going to show you how these other businesses are doing it and how it affects the entire business overall in the long term and also in the short term. Okay, so ROAS and MER, we have to first understand that the true important thing to look at when it comes to growing and scaling a business is actually MER. What is MER? MER is basically the business ROAS. If I spend $1 in advertising, let's just say on Facebook, how much is the business overall complexity going to generate? So if I spend $1, am I going to generate $3 back, $4 back, $2 back, $10 back? It's all about this proportion. This is the true number. So one thing to mention, just to clarify, is that if I spend $1 and make $2 back from Facebook, it doesn't mean that the entire business generates the $2. Maybe there's email marketing, there's organic that generates an extra $1, right? So for every $1 you spend, you make 3 back because there's an entire ecosystem, at least in Ecom, that works together. That supports each other. Each channel should support and complement each other channel, right? And so we never just look at ROAS. In-platform ROAS is very important because it gives you a direct understanding of how the account is performing, but we have to take it with a grain of salt because sometimes we've seen that taking a hit on ROAS a little bit actually impacts the business positively in the long term, but also immediately because it affects all other platforms. And I'm going to give you an example of how we're scaling this client. By the way, like this is just a client that we're managing, one of our 8-figure clients, one 8-figure client that we've managed, and we're scaling quite aggressively. And so we're using this exact approach just also because they happen to have a couple different channels all at once. Okay, let me bring you through an example of a sales journey that will prove my point. Okay, let's just say that your customer comes in from Facebook, and then 3 days later they get retargeted through Google Ads, and then 7 days later they get an email, and then 10 days later they click on the website, they go again, and then 10 days later they actually go. I'm assuming, by the way, that this customer clicked on all of these kind of like ads or ads basically. Facebook, then Google retargeting, then email, clicked on the email, went on the website, and then 10 days later 20 days later, whatever, there's a TikTok retargeting ad that allows them to convert essentially. And so if we have to be, precise on how these attribution platforms work, this is why it gets messy, right? How much weight are we giving to Facebook? How much weight are we giving to Google, retargeting, email, right? In this case, TikTok is going to attribute the sale. Facebook may also attribute the sale, but many times it doesn't because it's way too far along the journey, right? And so we need to find a balance, which is why looking at in-platform ROAS is not always the most efficient thing to do, especially as your business grows a little bit more. You start getting word of mouth, organic, referrals, you start growing your email list, all these things. Traffic could be coming from Instagram, right? Like all these things really matter. And so at the end of the day, when they get the sale, the platform is going to tell you TikTok ads. And so what are you going to do? Just not spend on Facebook because it wasn't effective? Like that makes no sense. So what I'm going to show you over here is an example of a $1 million per month e-commerce brand that we've been working with. Or this is not an exact brand that we've been working with, but kind of like the proportions that we see when it comes to working with brands that are doing around $1 million a month. Okay, so this is just a scenario. It's not all the time, it's not like this, but it's just like a very reasonable scenario. So let's just assume they're doing $1 million a month. Typically, we notice that whether it's Facebook, TikTok, mostly social media platforms, typically Facebook or TikTok, 70% of the time it's Facebook because it's the most popular and high leverage platform. Let's just say they make $500 and they spend $250K. We're gonna go over break even, ROAS, and all that stuff just in just a second, but just bear with me. So Facebook is gonna it's always gonna be a platform just generating that really basically half of the entire business. 500K from Facebook, 150,000 coming from Google. Typically what we see is that, if you spend $100,000 on Facebook, typically the proportion is gonna be 15, 20, sometimes 30% is going to be spent of that amount is going to be spent on Google. So if it's 100 here, you're probably going to spend 20, 30K on Google. And sometimes Google can really scale, but it's just really hard if you don't create that extra level of awareness. So just by going with Facebook, increasing your spend, you will automatically increase your Google retargeting and rankings and whatever. So it's going to scale more. Then, so this is a typical proportion when it comes to revenue. 500, 150 is coming from here. Then maybe another 30, 40, 50 is coming from TikTok, depending on if we make prospecting work, which is not always a given. There's a reason why TikTok, and I get a lot of questions about TikTok. There's a reason why, based on all e-commerce brands, only but the budget of most e-commerce brands is 5 to 6%, maybe 7% is going towards TikTok, and there's a reason to that because it's harder to scale. It's mostly it's optimized for maybe a certain type of product, maybe more inexpensive products like 50, 60, 70, but it doesn't mean that you cannot leverage this platform to build audiences, retargeting, and actually make it work for you. Okay, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be this case for you. Okay, then typically 20 to 30% of revenue is coming from email. So I just say 222% in this scenario. And then typically because of all of this ecosystem, or also because they're maybe ranking organically by their own matter, or for whatever reason, they're getting 10-20% of sales organically, right? That has been built over time, okay? And so I just put 10% organically. So these obviously have zero ad spend. These require ad spend. And so these are basically the numbers. Just let's, and by the way, I'm talking about all these things, first of all, because I think it's interesting to break down an 8-figure business so that you see kind of like the distribution of how they're operating under, so that you can compare it with your own brand. But also I wanted to go over the numbers so we can see the real numbers that they're going after, and also explain why all this makes sense with further explanation down below. So just bear with me. So let's just say that the average blended ROAS is actually 2.2, and the break-even ROAS is 1.7. So they have around 60% gross margin. So their cost to produce, ship, product landed to the customer in front of the customer's door is 40%, and so the gross margin is 60%. How did I come up with this 1.7 break-even? All you have to do is basically, if it's 60%, you just do 100 divided by 60%. And so 100% divided by 60%, because we're dealing with percentile, right? It's going to give you 1.7. That's basically the proportion, okay? So 1.7, it's going to say 1.66, but I always round it up because there's fees and stuff like that. So let's just say 1.7. So this is quite typical. Sometimes brands that actually scale further like this, sometimes they have, most likely they have better margins, maybe a 1.5 break even. So like 70%, 65, 70, 75%, it really depends. But I want it to be like, also a bit more on the conservative side, so 60% is a good number that people can relate to, okay? So total revenue generated is $1 million for the single month. And then COGS, let me just go with COGS first. COGS are 400,000, right? The 40% because of the 60% gross margin, so 40% is the cost. 400,000, and then the total ad spend, if we combine all these platforms together, is 310. Now, of course, the total expenses, if we put in also fixed cost, like if maybe they have a small warehouse, right, or they have like 10 team members that they're paying 5, 6, 7,000 a month, or maybe they're also paying an agency 5, 10, 15,000 a month. All of this is a reasonable fixed cost. It can be lower depending on how big you want your team to be, right? We have an agency, or a business that we work with that is doing over $1 million a month in most months, and they just work with us, and then they have like 3 or 4 people in-house, just extra designers, extra editors. So like you can run a very lean brand. It just depends on what type of business you're operating under. Some businesses require more people, and some businesses require less. And so I did something realistic here, like 70,000 per month in payroll. So they have like multiple team members. And so based on these numbers, they basically operate under a 22% margin. Now, I want to note one thing. The Facebook ad spend here is 250 spent, 500 generated. And one might, somebody that's maybe has a 6-figure mindset might think, okay, scaling to this point would never make sense for me. And also one other thing that they don't understand is that this Facebook platform will affect all of the other platforms, and I'm going to explain to you in just a second how that is the case with step-by-step examples. But this is really, really important, because this business, if they did not spend 250,000 to basically almost break even, we can also say that if we maybe include fixed costs and other costs, the break-even ROAS would be higher, so like maybe 2.2. So maybe they're just breaking even, right? So they're almost breaking even, maybe barely profiting on the front end and bring in 500,000. But because of this, they're able to essentially generate all of the rest, the extra $500,000, right? Mainly because, I'm not saying only because of Facebook. Because of Facebook in this example, right? But it could be TikTok. We've also seen brands that really spend a lot on TikTok because it works for them, right? And at the same time, also these platforms will have a positive effect on Facebook because we will be able to retarget it. Not all Google traffic will perhaps be retargeting. We also do perhaps some cold prospecting audiences that we can then same with TikTok, which we can then retarget into Facebook. Also organic. If there's word of mouth, that person that got referred to the website is hopping in, and then we can retarget them across all other platforms. So the major thing to understand here is that this brand is able to operate at over 20% margins, at $1 million a month, $200,000 in profit before tax, of course, at a 3.2x MER, 3.22. How did we calculate this? Well, it's $1 million divided by the total ad spend, which is 310. 250 plus 50, 300 plus 10 in TikTok spend, 310. And so this is basically the MER. So instead of growing a business thinking and being limited by maybe the poor, let's call it poor return on ad spend on one major platform, which is the platform that gives you the biggest opportunity because it grows the other platforms as well, as I explained. Instead of doing that, we want to go over that and kind of understand what target ROAS we need to go after to make sure that we have a stable MER that is over 3. Because if we go below 3, then maybe the margins are maybe 2.5x MER, maybe the margins are just like 10% or 5%, and maybe it's fine for the business owner, but for many, they want to stick around the 15 to 20% net margin, which is optimized for e-commerce, and it gives you a great valuation because of higher profit margins, right? And so we need to understand and start thinking about our paid channels by looking and taking into perspective the MER play. The MER, business ROAS. Let me just say this. This is also known as, in my own terminology, business ROAS. How much does the business generate overall for every dollar that we spend on marketing? this is a really important number. Now, let's take a look at over here, at this graph over here. So as I said before, Facebook will essentially, in this specific scenario, will essentially affect all of these channels, and I'm going to bring you through exactly how that is the case. Okay, now let's look at Facebook and Google plus TikTok. Okay, Facebook essentially will feed mostly retargeting. So if I spend, $250,000 a month on Facebook, there's a bunch, probably 250,000 visitors. If we want to be like, if we have like a $1 cost per click, or 200 to 250,000 visitors are going to be on the website ready to be retargeted. And so Google is amazing. Google and Facebook is really, really, really good for retargeting. If TikTok is the primary channel, same thing, TikTok and Google, amazing for retargeting. TikTok is also cheaper traffic. So if you can make TikTok work, it's going to be cheaper because they have slower CPMs than Facebook. And if you can make TikTok work along with Google plus Facebook retargeting, which is absolutely amazing, you can be very, very specific with retargeting audiences on Facebook, then you can absolutely crush it, right? So Facebook will feed into Google plus TikTok retargeting, and many people that see Facebook ads will go on Google for more information and ask buying questions. So also from that perspective, if I go on Facebook, even if I don't eventually see a Google ad or a Google retargeting ad, even if most likely I will, even if I don't, and I say, okay, company X reviews or company X reputation or whatever, I go on Google to like do some due diligence, then I'm going to essentially push traffic to Google organically, and then they're probably still going to end up visiting through Google, right? So all the platforms kind of work together. And so what we've seen is that growth on Facebook always equals growth on Google if you know how to structure the campaigns, and if you're doing good retargeting, and if you know how to build a good funnel overall. You have to be able to do that, or else nothing is going to work. That's assumed. Now, let's go on and talk about Facebook. And I'm also going to introduce a software that is really amazing. They will 10x to 20x. I'm going to talk about that later, so stick with me. But it's a great tool. So let's talk about how Facebook will help email. Facebook sends traffic and email lists. The email list essentially grows with great opt-in strategy. So if you have a great opt-in strategy where it's like, that 5 to 10% of people that visit your website end up actually subscribing to your list, then, you would never have email subscribers if you didn't have Facebook traffic. So sometimes we need to understand, and I know that I'm talking about very simple concepts maybe in this part of the video, but you always need to understand that this should also tweak the ROAS KPI that you should aim for on the front end. So if you have a very strong email marketing strategy that brings in 25% of revenue, and you know that it's directly proportional to Facebook, and it's automatically going to increase MER because you get an extra 25% of sales. This calculation should go into your front end metrics, and they should be lower. Remember one thing: if the business had same break even, same margins, whatever, but the let's just say that our target ROAS was going to be 2.5 or 2.7. Let's just say that was going to be our target, right? We would have never spent this much, because the higher your target ROAS and the lower you will spend, because if you spend more, your acquisition costs increase, your cost per clicks increase, sometimes your CPNs also increase, everything becomes more expensive and hard to maintain. Remember that. So the lower the target, it will be the easier. So if we work with a client that has a 2x ROAS target, it will be way easier to scale them compared to somebody that has a 3x ROAS target. Just remember always that, okay? And it's just a matter of reverse engineering what you should do. If you don't know how to structure this for your own brand, you should be able to build percentages like this, saying, okay, 10% is coming from here, 20%, 22% is coming from here, 15% is coming from here, whatever. And based on that, you reverse engineer by looking at your growth, your net margins. So I want my net margins to be 20%. What does the business need to spend? How much, what does the distribution need to look like in order for that to happen? What is my target ROAS based on my MER and based on that, right? All of these things that I'm talking about are absolutely crucial. And, it sounds stupid for me to continuously speak about these things, but they're very important. And also sometimes, surprisingly, 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs don't really understand this proportion and how important MER is, just compared to ROAS. Not saying ROAS is not important. I'm never going to say that. but it's, we have to also kind of take it with a grain of salt. Now, what else here? Facebook traffic can also be leveraged with tools like OpenSend, okay? And by, of course, here, before I go on to OpenSend, these people will then be retargeted with flows and email campaigns. That's a given. That's like a beginner statement. We're assuming that everybody that goes into the email will be retargeted, and you get my point. Now, Facebook and OpenSend. Now, what we've seen is that many times, if you have an opt-in rate, meaning that your email is doing 5% or 7%, to give you an example, every 100 visitors, you're able to get emails from 7%. From 7 people, if it's 7%, that's essentially a 7% opt-in rate, which is not too bad. But what happens to the rest of the 93, right? The 93 people that visited and never gave you their email. This is where OpenSend comes in play and makes a huge impact. Essentially, it's hard to explain how important this tool is, because some of my clients are using it. We're getting all of our clients trying to use it and convince them to use it, because it's a tool that absolutely will change the game. And let me just bring you through what they're doing over here, just to give you a quick introduction. So OpenSend, and there's a link down below with a free trial. You can start a trial. It's basically zero risk, and you can test it out if it works for you. But essentially what they do, long story short, is that every visitor that hops on your website, that engages, meaning they spent perhaps 3 minutes on the page or 5 minutes on the page, and they have multiple scenarios, or they added to cart, or they initiated checkout, right? Or they explored the collection page for an extra minute. All these high intent activities, they are able to find their their address. I'm not sure if there's like postal code or something, but most importantly, their email, their phone number, their work email, their personal email, all of their contact details. And you might think that this is basically illegal. It's absolutely not, because all of these records are public records. So you can find them, and they're free to use. Not free to use, but it's public data that this software is able to extrapolate and find. And so if I go in here, I scroll through their website, and they're gonna do this with me as well. So I'm gonna receive an email from them in just a second, probably, right? Because I'm going and scrolling through their website. They're pixeling me. They just basically have, it's like a Facebook pixel, but it's like they have an OpenSend pixel where you integrate with Klaviyo, and they are able to track and record all of your sessions online, so they know that I'm going into pricing. And because I'm high intent, meaning I'm spending a lot of time, they are essentially going to triple verify that my email is correct. Why is the triple verification interesting? It's interesting because most other softwares, and there are other softwares like this, other softwares will not do the verification. And what will end up happening, which is really important, is that you will put that email into maybe a Klaviyo email list, try to reach out to them, but the email is unverified, and they are uninterested, and they will unsubscribe because they didn't engage. And so how OpenSend basically solves this problem is that they only send you emails and give you emails of people that really engage at high levels. So typically what we end up doing is that we're able to find an extra 10-20% of emails, sometimes even more, based on the engagement of your website, on top of the existing 7% opt-in rate. So it's a no-brainer, and I'm not sure if you saw the prices, but those prices may seem a little bit expensive, but they are absolutely worth the ROI. This guy got a 7 ROI. Some of our clients get 10x ROI. This guy got a 12x ROI, so it's absolutely worth it. And on top of this, you can also read more information of how this works. They also do postal things, where you can get physical addresses, and they have a service where you can send note card, retargeting postal, cards, and send them like, hey, I noticed that you hopped on our website. Here's a coupon code or whatever. So it's very interesting. Explore this page. There's a link down below. But I felt every time there's a tool that really works well, I feel obligated to share it with everybody else. And of course, I practice what I preach. So I use it for my own business, my agency, and also all of my e-commerce clients. I'm trying to get them to use this as well. Really, really powerful tool. Over 1,000, I think they have over 1,000 clients. So they're super established. Okay, see, you can do ads as well, because you can also get, I forgot to mention, you can also get the emails that they generate for you of their visitors, right? You can also use them as retargeting audiences through ads. And people that visit your website, and the emails that they collect, which are from high intent individuals that spend time on your website, they're probably very likely to eventually buy because they're interested, they're high engaged. And postal I spoke about, and then of course email. You can feed all of these emails that you get from OpenSend into like specific segmented email campaigns or flows, right? I'll give you, before I move on, not to talk too much about the software, but it's amazing, honestly. One extra thing that you can do is that if you have a visitor that hops on your website and they actually add to cart, but they never gave you their email with the opt-in through Klaviyo, they're not going to receive an add to cart. But with them, you're able to track people that went to the cart page because you have their email and they're being pixeled with the OpenSend pixel, and you're able to set a retargeting add to cart or abandoned cart flow even if they didn't give you their email. So it's absolutely crazy. Okay, so explore it. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer that. But I wanted to go through the software because it's absolutely amazing. So Facebook, if we only scale, if we also take, not only Klaviyo, but also tools like OpenSend into consideration, then perhaps your targets will also drop, and maybe maybe a 1.8 ROAS is sustainable for you because it makes sense with the MER, right? So all of these things I'm trying to make, to give you an understanding of how we can typically scale clients and how we can still essentially lower our targets and maintain healthy profit margins, which allow us to scale, right? And so, this is a bit about that. And then this is really actually simple to understand here. Facebook, if you scale Facebook, it will also increase your organic foundation because Facebook drives future organic searches, right? People that remember you are going to then a year from now, 6 months from now, organically come to your website and search, so direct searches. And also, it also drives significant word of mouth. We've noticed that every single time that we scale our ads, there's always direct traffic and our organic rankings just increase. And yeah, as I see here, you'll also see your direct traffic gradually increase over time. I just essentially talked about it. Cool. So this is how it essentially looks for them. They build an omnipresent machine. And building an omnipresent machine is the first thing that will allow you to decrease your target ROAS so that you can spend more and scale, while still making sense with the numbers so that your MER is very stable and is very profitable for you. So in this scenario, Meta is just green because it's the one that has the major impact. But we want to create a kind of a circle here where the customer is just trapped and will never escape our funnel, right? It sounds kind of evil and evilish, I guess, but it's how marketing works, right? We have to be good at remarketing and targeting people again and making sure that if you truly believe in the product that we sell, eventually having them as a customer because we believe in our product, right? And so hopefully this video made sense. I know that I went on a rant on a couple of things, but this is a very at heart topic for me in how we grow businesses that are typically able to scale past 7 or 8 figures. Okay, let me know if you have any questions and see you in the next video. Bye. On a side note, before I end it off here, if you actually own an e-commerce business and you want your business and your brand to be audited, we can just hop on a call, hop on a free strategy session with myself or one of my team members, and we can pretty much have a conversation about your roadmap towards next year and how perhaps you can reach your goals. The conversation is very laid back. It's honestly just to understand if there's an opportunity for us to do even business together one day. Okay? With no further ado, thank you once again. And who knows, maybe see you in the next masterclass.